Number 11, Saving the Lemmy, page number 117. All of you open this chapter. Yes, so let us start. Have you seen any flowers of the following colors? Think about them and write their names. So children, have you seen any flower having red color? Yes, rose or hibiscus. Have you seen any flower having pink color? Yes, that is lotus. Next, white color. Have you seen any flower having white color? Yes, we can write jasmine. Okay. Then next is yellow. That is sunflower. Next one. Have you seen any flower having blue color? Yes, that is blue star. We can write blue star. Now next, flower having orange color, and that is marigold. We can write marigold. Okay. Children, in this story, Saving the Lemmy is a medicinal plant and it has white flowers with 5 petals, and also it has green shiny leaves. A young girl who is from Nepal, her name is Kachi. She went to the forest with her grandmother and her brother in search of the lemmy plant, but they did not find the lemmy there. Now let us read what happens in the story and see they find the lemmy at the end of the story or not. Kachi, a young girl from Nepal, went to the forest with her grandmother and her brother Daju in search of the lemmy plant. Kachi, a young girl who is from Nepal, goes to the forest with her grandmother and her brother. And why they went to the forest? They went in search of the lemmy plant. Okay, they all three went in search of the lemmy plant. The lemmy is a special plant that has white flowers and shiny green leaves. Okay, lemmy is a special plant that has white flowers and shiny green leaves. Beta, why lemmy is a special plant? Because of its medicinal properties. Okay, lemmy is a special plant because of its medicinal properties. Now next what they are saying, it is good for cold and cough and aching bones. Okay, lemmy plant is good for cold and cough and aching bones. Yes, next what they are saying, because people do not always look after plants and trees, there are fewer and fewer of them left. Okay, as we all knows, people do not always look after plants and trees, so that is the reason there are fewer and fewer of them left. Then Kachi, grandmother and Daju did not know whether there were any lemmy plants left or not. Beta, they all went to the forest in search of lemmy plant, but they did not know whether there were any plants left or not. After ferrying across the river, they walked through a sal forest and a bamboo thicket, but they did not find the lemmy there. Okay, so after ferrying across the river, ferried means crossed a river in a boat. Okay, beta, so after crossing the river, they walked through a sal forest. Sal means a North Indian tree, and a thicket means a group of many trees. Okay, so after crossing the river, they walked through a sal forest and a bamboo thicket. But what happened? They did not find the lemmy there as well. ओके बेटा, उनको वहाँ भी लेमी प्लांट नहीं मिला. Let us read this story to learn what happens next. So now let us read the story to learn what happens next. When they could not find the lily plant, what did they do next? They climbed higher and came to a waterfall that rushed over the rocks. They stopped here for a drink. So they climbed higher and came to a place where water falls from a high place to a low place, flowed over the rocks. And they stopped here for a drink. ठीक है बेटा, they stopped there so that they could drink some water. Kachi looked carefully at all the beauty in that wet and green place. Where they stopped for water, Kachi looked carefully at all the beauty in that wet and green place. She also looked for the 5-petaled white flowers of the lily. She also looked for the lily plant. Where they stopped for water, there she looked carefully all the beauty and also looked for 5-petaled white flowers of the lily. Means she also looked for the lily plant. But what happens? But she did not find them near the waterfall. उसको वो प्लांट waterfall के पास भी नहीं मिला था. Then next, they now climbed higher where no grass grew, only moss and small herbs beneath the tall trees. They now climbed higher and reached to the place where no grass grew, only moss and small herbs. Moss means a soft green plant that grows like a carpet, and herbs plants that people use to make food taste good or in medicine. Okay बेटा, moss का meaning क्या होता है? A soft green plant that grows like a carpet. And what is the meaning of herbs? Herbs are the plants that people use to make food taste good or in medicine. Okay, people उनको यूज़ करते हैं ताकि फूड का टेस्ट अच्छा लगे और मेडिसिन में भी यूज़ होते हैं. ओके, बीनीथ द टॉल ट्रीज. So students, when Kachi was looking for the lily plant near the waterfall, but she could not find it, so they decided to climb higher. So they kept on moving and reached to a place where no grass grew, only moss and small herbs beneath the tall trees. Kachi looked all around that green and mossy place for the white flowers of the lily plant. So after reaching the green and the mossy place where they could see only the moss and the herbs, Kachi looked all around that place for the white flowers of the lily plant. But what happened? She did not find them there. Then they came to the highest place where no trees grew and white snow lay on the stony ground. So when they could not find the lily plant in the mossy place, then they came to the highest place. There were no trees, only white snow on the stony ground. Okay beta, when they could not find the lily plant in the mossy place, then they decided to come to the highest place. There were no trees, only white snow on the stony ground. Kachi looked carefully around that white and stony place to find the starry flowers of the lily, but she found none there. So beta, when Kachi looks around that white stony place to find the lily plant, she did not find there also. Okay, beta, after reaching to the highest place, Kanchi looked carefully around that white and stony place, but she did not find there also. Now, children, they walked carefully back down the steep path through an oak forest. Kachi looked up at the trees and at the blue sky. The forest world was so wide. So, beta, when they could not find the limy plant in the white and stony place where there was snow and there were lots of stones, they started walking down. So, children, the mountains are steep. So, they walked carefully back down the steep path. Steep path, a road that slopes up or down sharply. So the path was steep and they were moving down. While moving down, what Kachi did, Kachi looked up. There were trees and there was blue sky when they were passing through the oak forest. Oak is a kind of large tree. What is oak, beta? Oak is a kind of large tree, and Kachi feels that forest world was so wide, so big. What she felt? She feels that the forest world was so wide, so big. Then there was a quick movement and a squirrel leapt down. The forest world was so full of life. So now suddenly what happened? There was a quick movement. Something started to move. What did Kachi notice, beta? She saw that squirrel leapt down, or a squirrel made a big jump. What she noticed, beta? She saw that a squirrel leapt down, or a squirrel made a big jump. And the forest world was so full of life. And the forest world was so full of life. Then next, she looked down at the place where it had disappeared. It was a tangle, tiny plants and vines, a small garden. The forest had so many trees. So, beta, she looked down at the place where it had disappeared, and what did she see? It was a tangle of tiny plants and vines. What did she see? It was a tangle of tiny plants and vines. When she looked down, what did she see? It was a tangle. Tangle means a jumble of things. Means, beta, there were many things. There were small plants and vines. Okay, children, what are vines? Vines are also a type of plant with very thin stem. With very thin stem means the stem is not woody. The stem is very thin. Okay, so when she looked down, she see it was a tangle of tiny plants and vines, a small garden, and the forest had so many trees. It had so many trees. Then next, then she looked again at her feet. Kachi saw a mass of white cherry flowers and smelt the lovely scent. It must be the limy. Grandmother Daju, she called. Then she looked again at her feet, and what did she see with her? Kachi saw a mass of white cherry flowers. Mass means a large quantity of something. So she saw a mass of white cherry flowers and smelt the lovely scent. It must be the limy. She smelt and said it must be the limy. Grandmother Daju, she called. After she felt it must be the limy, she called her grandmother and her brother. So she called grandmother and Daju. Then come to the next page, page number 105. 19. Come quickly, they came. It was indeed the Limmy. So, beta, when Kachi called grandmother and her brother, come quickly. And when they saw the plant, the flowers, it was the Limmy plant. It was the Limmy plant. Then next what they are saying, beta, we must notice where it grows, said Daju as he drew a picture of the flower in his notebook. What Daju said, we must notice the place where this Limmy plant grows while drawing the picture in notebook. We must, what he said, beta, we must notice the place where this Limmy plant grows while drawing the picture in notebook. As you can see in this picture, he is making a drawing. Yeah. So he said we must notice the place where this Limmy plant grows while drawing the picture in his notebook. Then next, we must not disturb it, for every plant is precious. If we move it, it may die. If we move it, it may die. So Daju says we must not disturb this plant because every plant is precious. Every plant is precious. Precious means great use or value, means a valuable thing. Precious means a valuable thing. So he says we must not disturb this plant because every plant is precious. If we move, it may die. Nana beta, he says if we move, it may die. I will come back after the flowering and collect some seeds for planting. Maybe our mountains will again have the sweet smell of the Limmy, finished Daju. He says we'll come back after the flowering, after the season, when it has lots of flowers, and we'll collect some seed for planting in our place. And maybe our mountains will again have the sweet smell of the Limmy. Now Daju finished his words. Then the swallows were swinging in white sweeps in the valley as they neared home. So when they were coming back, the swallows, which is a flying birds, swallows which is a flying birds, they were moving in a large circle. When they were coming back, the swallows were moving in a large circle. Daju carried grandmother's umbrella and his bag. Grandmother carried a spray of red flowers and Kachi carried a head full of forest memories. So beta, while returning home, what they were carrying, Daju was carrying grandmother's umbrella and his bag. What he was carrying, beta? He was carrying his grandmother's umbrella and his bag. Grandmother carrying a spray of red flowers. A spray of red flowers means a small branch with red flowers. A small branch having the red flowers. So she was carrying a spray of red flowers and Kachi carrying a head full of forest memories. Whatever she had seen in the forest, all she was carrying in her head as a forest memories. Then next, this is just a part of what Kachi sees and learns in forest that day. She learns about the special uses of plants and how poor villagers are often paid very little money to collect seeds, roots, flowers and leaves for rich business people who sell them at high prices. To be a part of Kachi's day in the forest, read her full story in Kachi's Quest. So, children, this story that we have read in this chapter is just a small what Kachi sees in the forest, and she learns about the special uses of the plants, and she also learns how the poor villagers are often paid very little money to collect seeds, roots, flowers, and leaves for rich people, and who sell them at high prices. And to be a part of Akachi's day in the forest, if you want to read the full story, you can read her full story in Kachi's quest. Okay, you can read in the story Kachi's quest. Okay, so beta, this was the chapter Saving the Limmy, and what we learned from this chapter, we learned how to protect our environment, why it is important to protect different plants and species. Okay, what we learned how to protect our environment, why it is important to protect different plants and species. Okay, beta. So this chapter is over. Saving the Limmy. Here we complete this